Good evening. Today I'm here to talk to you about a new property insurance underwriting scheme, EnviroSure, the first international underwriting agency that rewards good environmental practices. Part 1, Product Offering. The EnviroSure product rewards individual companies who aim to reduce their pollution levels. EnviroSure's risk engineers and underwriting team provide a series of bespoke pollution-reducing recommendations for your business, which, when adhered to, rewards the business with reduced insurance premium rates and policy deductibles year after year. Target market. The Asia Pacific region is home to over 4.5 billion people, more than half of the world's population. North et al. Explains that the leading anthropogenic sources of air pollution are driven by industrialization and urbanization, and they include emissions from vehicles, factories, and power plants. The figure on the right-hand side of this slide displays the locations of the world's operative fossil-fueled power plants, their primary fuels, and the tons of carbon dioxide they released in 2018. Evidently, the Asia-Pacific region is a major contributor. As the International Panel on Climate Change reports, to keep global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius, we need to limit CO2 emissions to no more than 1,000 gigatons of CO2. This implies severe cuts to current emission levels, a 41% to 72% reduction by 2050. As shown in the first figure on this slide, pollutant concentrations are substantially higher in the Asia-Pacific region than in much of the developed world. This is a major environmental concern that EnviroSure aims to address. Kahia and Ghibli's analysis conclude that economic growth, urbanization, and energy intensity increase the degree of CO2 emissions. With this being said, the industrial production for China, Singapore, and India are projected to grow by 5.1%, 11.3%, and 11.8% respectively in 2022. Therefore, CO2 emissions will increase in these nations as well. This is why we need to incentivize environmentally friendly business practices for the major contributors. Australia being no exception, as it is also a large contributor to global CO2 emissions. As shown in the second figure displayed here, Australia's CO2 emissions per capita are the greatest out of the top 10 industrial countries. Current market. Currently, there are a few underwriting agencies that have specified Asia-Pacific property underwriting teams. This means that EnviroSure will be able to acquire clientele based off the underwriter's specialized understanding of property risk in this region. Liberty Global is a multinational market which has been operating in the Asia-Pacific for the last 20 years. HDI Global, Chubb Insurance, and FM Global are also companies which operate within this space. However, this is done to a less specialized extent and ensures this region much more broadly. None of which offer products that incentivize environmentally conducive operations for industrial property risks. EnviroSure targets industrial property insurance, specifically within the Asian Pacific region, with the goal to reduce the amount of pollution being created year after year. Cross-cultural analysis. Presbytero and Toledano's study to examine the effect of cultural intelligence, or CQ as it's depicted in the figure displayed, post cross-cultural training on a global team member's performance, concluded that cultural intelligence post cross-cultural training has a positive correlation towards individual task performance. This is shown by the beta coefficient in the figure displayed. Cross-cultural training amongst EnviroSure's staff will be vital due to the geographical scope in which it operates. In an effort to understand the cross-cultural effectiveness for the EnviroSure's product, I have utilized the cage distance framework in the table shown. Firstly, how does cultural distance affect the product? Well, the platform used and insurance contracts and wordings will need to have multilingual options in order to be successful, specifically for China, India, and Singapore. Administrative distance is a tricky factor as international insurance placements in China, India, and Singapore are required locally for compliance. Therefore, international offices will be required. Geographic distance should not be as much of an issue as we aren't selling a physical product. However, communications and connectivity are key and local risk engineers will need to be engaged. Finally, similarly to administrative distance, it is a law to place insurance locally for certain countries. Therefore, correct distribution will be vital. Presentation on EnviroSure insurance.